Hey, I don't even know what I'm saying. Hi, welcome back to another episode of Terrorvision with Justin.
I'm Alex.
I'm Alex. I like
Hi,
how
Al.
like
Hi.
subtle.
Hi, guys.
I'm Alex.
I'm Alex.
We
It's
have
me.
been a little busy lately, but
Dude, we're here.
we're back.
We're
We're
back.
here. Why do I say we're back? Like, I mean, we've been uploading pretty consistent
Yeah.
episodes for the last few ones, but
Dude, we got an upload out in the middle of me moving across the state. So
yeah,
I'd say that's pretty decent.
we're on our fucking A game now, so
Hmm.
ish. But yeah, we just both been a little busy with work is all. So,
Yep, but
but
finally unpacked. All the boxes are gone.
hell
Busy,
yeah,
busy,
man.
busy, dude.
Yeah, for today's episode, we are gonna be reviewing the movie Pearl. It's a 2022 horror drama. It's about an hour and 42 minutes long. Director is T. West. I think that's how you would pronounce it because his real name's Timon. So T. West.
Maybe
Um,
Ty, you think?
Ty probably. It's like T.I. So
Yeah.
T. Ty West, T. West, whoever he is. This movie is also starring Mia Goth, which I'm just gonna throw it out there right now. She was fucking phenomenal in this film.
Oh yeah.
Um,
She didn't like win anything or was nominated for anything for this movie, I don't think,
no,
but she should have been.
yeah, I know her acting was just like unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, Tyler and Ramon watched the movie the first time, like not too long ago, and me and him were just talking about for like 5 minutes how great Mia Goth was in the movie. I was like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
she was fucking phenomenal.
No, she
Um,
killed it.
IMDb, I gotta stop messing that up, Alex. IMDb gave it a 7 out of 10, and Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 92%. So overall, this movie had pretty good ratings.
It's pretty well received. I remember hearing a lot of people talk about it when it came out.
Yeah, no, definitely. We were going to do the movie X first because, you
That
know,
was the first one that came out.
yeah, so since that was like, yeah, the first one that came out, and then Pearl is supposed to be a prequel, so we kind of just decided just to do it.
Well, I don't know if we decided. I remember we talked about it and we were like, yeah, we'll do the X trilogy, which we'll probably get to the other movies someday. But I remember you and I were like, yeah, we'll do X, and then I watched Pearl, and I texted you and I was like, oh yeah, by the way, I watched Pearl, and you were like, oh, we could do that.
Yeah, because honestly, Pearl is a better film than X, in my opinion. X was all right, but we
Well, so
can.
I haven't seen the others yet. I haven't seen X or Maxine.
Maxine, I don't know if it's come out yet, but
Let me see. I think so.
it's supposed to drop in theaters soon. But X was all right. I wouldn't say it was bad, but it was just all right.
I
But
see. Yeah,
Pearl was just a good prequel.
out of the three on IMDb, has the lowest rating at 6.5.
Yeah, I'm not surprised honestly because X wasn't too phenomenal of a film. Like, or it wasn't even like really like scary or like horror wise in a
I
way.
wouldn't I wouldn't really say Pearl was all that scary either myself.
It was more psychological than it was, scary. But
Right.
I think this movie with Pearl, the one feeling I had the most when I first watched Pearl was being uncomfortable. This movie makes you really uncomfortable
Oh, for
watching
sure.
it. Like, there
For
are
sure.
so many scenes in this movie that I just was so uncomfortable watching, and we can honestly list a few if you had any in mind.
Man, off the top of my head, a lot of the scenes with her dad made me uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Just a lot of the like close-up shots and kind of I'm not. Let me look up the actor's name, but whoever played Pearl's dad did a really good job because what is it, Simon Prast? I think it was him. Or no, I'm looking
Mm-hmm.
at the wrong fucking movie. Matthew Sutherland.
Yes.
He like because he didn't have a lot to work with acting wise in the sense that he plays a what's the right word for that? A paralyzed person, so he's just kind of like sitting in a chair for the whole movie, and he doesn't have any lines. He doesn't he's paralyzed, so he doesn't get up and do anything. But so really, all he has to work with are facial expressions, and just through those alone, he just conveys this really like uncomfortable, like you put it right, just uncomfortable feeling.
Right.
Yeah. So his scenes in particular always put me in a uncomfortable feeling. And then the other scenes were a lot of close-ups of Mia Goth's face when she's doing, like the dance routine towards the end and stuff. Just like
Mm-hmm.
seeing that overly positive expression in her face, but you can see just like in her eyes and stuff that there's no actual joy really there. You know what I mean?
Right.
She does a really good job reaching the uncanny valley with her facial expressions and her body language. So, I mean, I think acting wise, Mia Goth and the other guy, man, so bad with names, Matthew Sunderland, they did a phenomenal job. The two of them in particular just standouts in this movie for me.
Before we dive a little bit too deep into this movie, I just forgot to add to anybody who hasn't seen Pearl or has watched Pearl, but I mean, it doesn't matter if you've watched it, if you're listening to this, but if you haven't seen it and you're listening to this episode, just a quick review of like what the movie's about. It's about this girl who's living on a farm, kind of being controlled by her mother and having to take care of her father and just be around her family. She wants to chase off and run away and, pursue her dreams of wanting to be a big movie star and being on the big screens. But a lot of things are holding her back, including family, love, and other, things that come the way. So in order for her to pursue her dreams, she needs to, she's trying to like remove those things out of the way so it doesn't get interrupted.
I would say this movie, like deep down, is about being trapped in a box.
Right.
It's definitely this character Pearl. She's just kind of put in a position where she has all of these responsibilities and obligations forced upon her, where she had no choice in the matter. Or what? The sad thing about it is that a lot of the responsibilities and issues that she has to deal with on a daily basis aren't really anyone's fault. It's just the box that she was born in. Her dad's paralyzed, so she and her mom have to take care of him, which leaves a lot of the family matters on her mom, as her mom has to kind of be the breadwinner and then take care of the house, and she's doing literally everything on top of taking care of this other man. And her mom is German, which I think was a very interesting, because there aren't any, like, Pearl's not, she doesn't have an accent. As far as we know, her dad seems American. And they live on an American farm. So when this movie I bring that up because when this movie starts and I heard Pearl's mom's accent, being a pretty thick German accent, and she mentioned the war, I assumed that this took place in like Germany during like World War One, which I think it does take place during World War One, but it's definitely like on an American farm. But the point is that her mom being German kind of lends herself. It kind of lets you imagine how she got here, and like maybe she's like a refugee of World War One. Maybe she had to move here. Maybe whatever. But it kind of gives a little bit of justification to her mom when she is being strict. Like there's that scene where Pearl mentions, she's like, oh, I bought some candy on the way home, and her mom just takes away her dinner and she's like, okay, well, you can just have what's left afterwards since you already ate. And it adds a really interesting perspective to this family dynamic, because it's not really either of their faults, but they're both stuck in this just really difficult situation, which I think is interesting.
This is why I have Alex as a co-host, because he explains things better than my dyslexic ass. So, I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Anyways.
And then Pearl, she isn't happy on the farm.
Literally my explanation. I'm just like, yeah, Pearl's not happy, and yeah, she wants to be big, so kill everybody. That was a great way of explaining, most of the film there, or like plot-wise. Right. To jump back into like those uncomfortable scenes that we were mentioning, I wanted to give her a big shout out for the credit scene with her fucking staring into the camera, like no blinking, holding out this just creepy, just unsettling smile while tears are rolling down her face.
The thing that I think is really funny about that shot, it's like 2 minutes like straight, uninterrupted of just
Yeah.
her staring into the camera, smiling like so aggressively. And I think for me the funniest part about that scene, it's not supposed to be funny, and it's definitely not. But I don't know, maybe like a minute or two in to like watching that scene, I was like, she's not acting anymore. Like this is genuinely hurting her face.
she's
Like she is
she's
genuinely
in
in
pain.
pain right now.
Somebody cut it.
Can we get her like a wet wipe or something?
Like literally, you could see like her face just turning red, and just her
You could-
eyes are just like she is just
Yeah.
trying her all best not to break character, but like you could truly see the
She's
pain in her face towards
in her
like
head.
the
She's
end.
like, "Can you call cut? Please call cut."
No, she's like, what the fuck? Yeah, no, that scene, like, I give major props to for her holding out and not
Right.
breaking character for fucking,
And
what,
we
two,
we
three
laugh at
minutes?
it, but that takes serious fucking like strength and willpower. It kind of reminds me of Jim Carrey having to go through like Navy SEAL torture training during the How the Grinch Stole Christmas because he had to sit unmoving for so long for them to do the makeup. It takes actual physical work to be able to do something like that. And you don't really think about
Yeah.
that a whole lot.
No, it's insane. So, like, I give major props for Mia
Yeah.
Goth for the actress who she is, because
She's an underrated
she's
actress for sure.
she is, definitely. Other scenes that I got uncomfortable with was, let's jump into, her fucking the Scarecrow, you know?
Oh,
That
yeah.
that was an interesting scene.
You know what it was for me for that scene? It wasn't even necessarily that she was like dry humping the scarecrow because like, we've all done that with like pillows once in a while.
Yes, we've all dry humped a scarecrow in our lives.
No, but the part about that made me the most uncomfortable was, was when she started like tongue kissing the scarecrow. And
Oh
I'm just
yeah,
like, that
yeah.
thing is so nasty. It's been outside all for months. It's covered in dirt and grime and bugs and nastiness, and I was just like forget the fucking the scarecrow part. It was the tonguing the scarecrow part that
I honestly
really.
just felt violated for the scarecrow. Like,
Yeah, yeah. You know what's funny
it's
is
just
we
grossed out.
we were watching Raina and I watched that movie together, and we were watching it, and it went on for a while. That scene went on for a good minute, and I just looked at her and I was like, I think we rented the wrong Wizard of Oz, honestly.
Literally. It kind of gives that, I had a conversation with one of my friends about that, but it kind of does give that kind of, this movie, like, I don't know, for some reason, I forgot, I think it was my friend Lex and I that were talking about Pearl, and I think she added that, like, this movie kind of gave, like a Wizard of Oz kind of feel to it. So, like, it's funny that you mentioned that or, like, made that joke because this movie does kind of give a weird kind of Wizard of Oz-esque in a way
Right, right.
of just, I don't know if it's just because of the time setting or just how just the movie's just kind of, like, the feel of the movie some sorts.
I can't confirm this, but I would definitely say that this movie was inspired by Wizard of Oz in a way, or they definitely meant to capture that feeling. I was reading an article the other day, actually, about this movie. It was literally like yesterday or something. But it was talking about how this movie was supposed to be filmed in black and white, but A24 essentially was like, no, we don't want to do that. So instead of filming it in black and white like they originally meant to, they filmed this movie with super vibrant, saturated colors to kind of juxtapose that on
Right.
the other end.
I think
It was
that's probably why it just has that Wizard of Oz feeling because
Yeah,
it
it's
just,
because
like,
it's got those bright colors in that. This movie is that was one of the things that I originally picked up on this movie in those intro shots was I was like, oh, this movie is trying to juxtapose its darker tone and subject matter with this kind of bright, vibrant, almost picturesque farm that she lives on. In those opening
right.
scenes, like if you know nothing about this movie and you watch maybe the first 10, 20 minutes of this movie and then we turn it off, you would probably think that the rest of this movie is House on the Prairie or something, right? Like
Right,
your
exactly.
typical good feel-good family farm movie, and that was definitely intentional. which I think is really interesting. I love when something is really dark, but they frame it as, overly positive, or vice versa. That's a
Right.
trope that always strikes a
That's
nerve with
what
me.
I
I'm
was
like,
gonna
that's
add
great.
too, because the movie started off real positive, and I was just like,
Hmm.
nope, let's just pitchfork a fucking goose and feed it to an alligator. Here we
Yeah.
go, Pearl, and I'm like, oh, because I think Pearl was the first one I watched before I even watched X, because I
Hmm.
was like, well, this is a prequel to this film, so it doesn't really matter, and this movie just looks better. So I watched Pearl first, and that was like my first reaction. I was just like, oh, okay, maybe this movie's just like a little different, you know?
Hmm.
And opening up, it was like positive, showing the whole farm and the opening scene with the barn door and the,
Yeah.
lovely music playing in the background. And then it just kind of, we get a little, who these characters are, and then showing Pearl, dancing in the farm in front of her animals. I'm like, okay, this is a little joyful. And then Mr. Goose walks in, just gets fucking yoinked and then fed to an alligator, and I'm just like, oh, I guess that's just how we're
Oh.
starting a movie.
Oh.
I'm just, oh,
um,
I guess that's it.
no, yeah, you're right. There aren't any, and I think that's kind of intentional. Is that the opening scene is meant to be perfect until she kills the goose, and it's like, oh, this isn't Dorothy. This is Pearl.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting way to start a movie and just to go about
I
it.
love it. I loved it. I was like, oh fuck. I'm like, cool. This is awesome.
Yeah.
What else I was gonna add to the scene where she's getting everything prepped and putting her dead family around the dinner table, and
Right.
then she's chopping up her friend to feed the alligator. That scene, I was like, giving me like real big Hereditary vibes.
Yeah. That scene was pretty graphic.
It was like, even like, because I know they were chopping off like a mannequin or like prosthetic
Hmm.
of like what it looked like to be the actress, but it looked so real.
It did. It did. Especially the part where she cuts her head off. That part in
Right.
particular stuck with me.
Yeah, because you kind of see like her jaw moving a bit, and
Hmm.
when
Hmm.
the axe just thrusts into the neck, and then even with her arms, they showed there was the hair like follicles and stuff on her arms and
Yeah.
stuff, and I
Yeah.
was like, "Fuck, this looks real."
That's something that a lot of horror movies kind of shy away from, is the actual showing of dismemberment. Like, a lot of times, they'll just cut to like a POV shot where you're looking up at the guy and he slams an axe down into the camera or whatever. You don't
Right.
actually really get you usually don't get a close up on whatever part is getting dismembered, which I think added to that just sense of like, oh, that's really gruesome.
Hmm. No, I also enjoyed well, not really. I wouldn't say the word enjoyed,
I
but
enjoyed that part where she cut up that other chick. I just loved seeing her
I,
limbs
I,
getting
I
dismembered.
really, I really liked the whole shot of her chasing her friend off the farm with the axe.
Oh yeah. That
That,
that made me uncomfortable, I'll be honest.
yeah, and I love how they also added when she was, you can even see too when she starts swinging the axe at her, that there's just that blood trail just following
Hmm.
behind her while she's running. And those small details that they add in this film just really brings it. It's just that whole shot, just in general, of that whole
Yeah.
chase and killing. It was just fuck, this is brutal. This is uncomfortable. I was at the edge of my seat. I was like, run, bitch! And then, like,
That thought of just like putting yourself in that situation was just terrifying. That's just a terrifying position to be in. Now that we've talked quite a bit about the movie and some of the things we liked, or well, we should get into the meat of the plot. There's not really a whole lot that happens story wise per se. I think most of it is just kind of learning about Pearl and her family. They kind of hint at her having a husband who's away at war, at
mhm.
the World War. But the movie just kind of follows her in her day to day life and delving deeper into her delusions. She meets this guy who works at a theater. He's the projectionist, and they kind of hit it off and start an affair, for lack of a better word. Even though we never really meet her husband, and that whole situation is a really interesting thing to have included in the movie
Hmm.
because it feels like the projectionist guy and her husband are manifestations of her two options of leaving home and going off to this fantastical Hollywood lifestyle that she wants,
Hmm.
or staying at home with her family and taking care of the farm. And even though she's very clear about wanting to leave, you can see throughout the movie that she does, on a certain level, care about her family and the farm. It's more so just the circumstances around that upset her and lead her down the path that she goes down.
Right.
But having those two characters be the symbolic pulling her one way or the other is really interesting, I think.
I never really looked at it that way. Yeah, no, that's interesting. Now you got me thinking more.
Yeah, yeah. But well, anyways, after that, I like this movie. I do, but I think 6.5, 7 is fair for it because I would say that like the first 2/3 of the movie are pretty fucking boring. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
it
be
gets
honest.
it gets slow in the beginning a little bit.
Yeah, it gets really fucking slow. Like, not a lot happens, and you just see Pearl kind of, somewhat crazy. But, anyways, shit kind of hits the fan towards the third act, which is where this movie really picks up, where she just starts going crazy. She gets into this big fight with her mom, and she accidentally ends up burning her alive. She, like, pushes her into the fireplace by accident. And then she just commits, and then she's just like, well, I've killed people. I'm a killer. Like,
Yeah.
this is what I do. And she brings her new projectionist boyfriend over, and he starts getting weird vibes, and he's like, oh, this chick is fucking crazy, crazy. So
Hell no.
he's like, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go. I've got work.
He's like,
And
oh
she
shit, look at the
flips out.
time.
And I'm gonna be honest, that scene where she's flipping out at him, it kind of freaked me out a little bit. Like, where she's screaming at him and she's like, no, what did I do wrong? Like, I was just like,
She is
chill.
like the ultimate scream queen in horror now.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
like her acting, especially with her like emotional acting when she gets angry, especially in Pearl.
Oh, dude.
It's so good.
No
Like there
parallel.
is so
No
so
parallel.
emotion that it almost seems like it's not even acting. Like it almost just seems real.
No, I felt like I was getting yelled at. Like, that scene
I
made me,
was like,
like,
stop.
I was like, okay, I'll stay. No, but yeah, and then he tries to leave, so she fucking stabs him with a pitchfork. I mean, you can't really blame her there, you know. I mean, we get it. We've all been there. We've all wanted
Yeah,
to stab somebody with a
we've all
pitchfork a
been
little
there. We
bit.
all wanted to stab somebody with a pitchfork.
I've come pretty close to stabbing you once or twice.
Oh, yeah, well, feelings mutual.
And yeah, and that's, I mean, she kills him. She kills her mom. She ends up like suffocating her dad in a really, it's a. I want to say it's a heartfelt scene, but it's really not. Because, well, in her mind, she's going to this audition to be like a line dancer, which is what she wants to be. She wants to go to Hollywood and be one of the line dancers. And so in her mind, she's pretty much already got the part. She's just so down in this delusion that she's convinced that she's just going to go and get the part and everything's going to fall into place. So she kind of she dresses her dad in this nice suit and she like sets up her mom's corpse and stuff. This big going away party. She suffocates her dad with like a pillowcase because she's not going to be there to take care of him anymore. But she has this moment with him beforehand where she's like, I love you. Like, and it's, I don't
Yeah,
know.
it was just one of those moments where it's just like, I love you, Dad. You were loved and everything, yada yada, but you're in my way. So, like,
Yeah,
bye.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. But you could see that it did.
There was a heartfelt little moment there where she, like, because she knew, like, deep down, and you could see from watching that scene, she did care for her dad. She did put a lot to help him and take care of him.
Exactly. There was a small part of her that was genuinely sad in that moment.
Right.
And you can see that in her performance. Not a huge part, but there was a small part of her that was like, "Oh, this sucks." But in the finale, she goes to this audition with her, what is her cousin or something? This other blonde girl who's like a close friend or something.
Mm-hmm.
And she gives it her all in this dance, which we were talking about earlier. It's this really almost uncomfortable dance number where you just know in your bones she's not gonna get it. You know she's giving it her all, but in from at this point in the movie, you're like, she's not going to get it.
Yeah.
And of course, she doesn't get it. They're like, we're looking for someone blonde. And real quick, like, because this pissed me off. If you were looking for a blonde chick, why did you let any of them audition? Like, what? If you were like, we need a blonde chick, like, the second Pearl walked on stage, you should have just been like, oh, sorry, like, we're not looking for that. Like, we're looking for something specific. Why let her, like, do her fucking performance if immediately you were just like, nah.
I don't know. Maybe just to see if there's any potential in these brunettes.
Maybe. But I don't. There was a part of me that was like, you know what?
I know. Why waste your time?
People.
Like, why waste the time? Why just make them embarrassed even more? Just be like,
at
next!
that point, she was justified in killing everyone. But yeah, so they don't give it to her, and she goes home. She cries. She fucking, like, full scream sobs.
Oh my god,
her blonde cousin comes over and tries to console her, and I don't think the movie ever confirms whether she got the part or not. I don't think her cousin got the part.
You mean her sister-in-law?
Oh, is it her sister-in-law?
Yeah, it's her husband's sister.
I see. I didn't piece that together. I just assumed they were like cousins,
right?
Or like close neighbors or something.
No, they're the sister-in-laws.
I see. So yeah, her sister-in-law comes over and tries to comfort her, and Pearl, because her sister-in-law is blonde, Pearl assumes that she got the part. And there's just nothing that she can really say to convince her otherwise. And they go back to Pearl's house, and Pearl has this 10-minute uncut monologue, just this straight shot of
oh my god, that scene
trauma dumping
was
on everyone.
I was going to also add to that was also an uncomfortable, kind of like anxiety-filled scene, because I'm just sitting there and I'm just, when is this going to end? Like, she's just confessing all the shit now, and I'm just, fuck. I'm like, make it stop.
So, I felt pretty mixed on that scene. On one hand, I feel like that is a fantastic shot, technically, and from a performance perspective.
Right.
Like, to be able to deliver a monologue like that in one take is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. That is a fantastic ability for an actor to be able to have, and major props to Mia Goth for that.
Oh, yeah.
And same thing with the director and everyone behind the camera doing that scene. Like, just being able to get that shot is fantastic.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
But on the other hand, it went on for way fucking too long.
It did drag out a little bit.
I was fully on the edge of my seat. I was fully invested in everything she was saying. But after, like, 5-6 minutes, I was, like, looking at my watch. I was like, okay, come on, guys. Like,
wrap it up!
Wrap it the fuck up. We get it. But on the other hand, that really makes the scene more interesting, in the sense that the longer she goes, the more certain you get that she's about to kill her stepsister, because it's like she's learning way too much to be able to walk free after this. And of course, that's what ends up happening, is because Pearl is convinced that her stepsister is the one that got the part. And they even have a short discussion where she's like, you can tell me, like, I'll be, I won't be upset. And the sister's like, no, like, I genuinely didn't get it. And Pearl just refuses to believe that. She's like, it's okay. Like, you can tell me, really.
I like your Pearl accent.
Thank you.
It's okay. You can tell me.
I stayed up all night working on it. But it gets to the point where her stepsister has to be like, all right, well, yeah, fine, like, fuck it, I got the part, I'm sorry, better me than anyone else, I guess, right? And that's what kind of sets Pearl off the edge. So she goes out chasing her down with an axe in this really just kind of gut-wrenching scene, because it feels like you're in that situation. You know what I mean? It's just like, fuck, like, you're getting chased by someone with an axe. There's nothing you can do.
It was definitely one of those scenes where it had me on the seat, and you know how you're like yelling at the actor or the character in that person or in that sequence do something. So, like, for instance, telling somebody watching through a TV, like, run, like, what are you doing? Stop jogging around, run. Literally, that was my whole instance there. I'm like, she's gonna fucking trip. I already know it. She trips. I'm like, fucking run, bitch.
That was my first thought when she was out the door and, like, Pearl started chasing her. I was like, okay, if I'm in that situation, I'm taking my shoes off and I'm running. Like, because she was wearing heels. I don't care how much running on gravel hurts. It hurts a hell of a lot less than an axe in the back of your head. And so like I was just watching that and I was like, girl, like why are you trying to run with heels on? I'm just,
Dumb blonde
I don't know.
moments in horror movies.
Yeah, I guess
She
so,
was
man. But
literally
yeah,
the
like
dumb blonde
she's
in a horror film.
yeah. And really, well, that's not where the movie ends. She cuts up her sister's body in that scene we were talking about. That
Ugh,
was by far the most gruesome scene in the
very
movie.
Hereditary-esque.
And I wish there was more of that in this movie. I get this movie was more of a psychological horror and less of a, murder, blood, guts horror. But I can't help but wish that there was a little more horror to this movie because it felt more like it was a drama than it was a horror because nothing really, crazy happens until the end,
Right.
which left me just like, man, like for most of the movie, I was just like, when's something interesting gonna happen? Like this is all kind of interesting character development and an interesting situation. But I was like, my understanding is that this is a horror movie. I'm watching this for my horror
I might
podcast. I
have
would like
to
some horror.
maybe like a little disagree with yeah,
You think
with the
so?
because I actually enjoyed the build of the film. Like because I know like was it backtracking to when you said like it felt kind of dragged, which it did. Like there was a few parts where
Hmm.
some of this movie kind of did drag, but I also did enjoy the build of like getting to that point where it was its breaking point of
Hmm.
Pearl, where she finally snaps and like all that
Hmm.
anticipation. So I don't know. I enjoy movies that you know kind of build a dialogue to get to that climax or like that reaching point where it's just like oh fuck here we go this shit's
Right.
gonna hit the fan. So
No, and don't get me wrong. The build up is almost as important, if not more important, than the climax. Like 90% of times, you're absolutely right that the build up is what makes this movie in a
mhm,
sense. I just wish there was a little more horror in that build
right.
up, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be Pearl, but they kept bringing up that pig that her stepsister brought over. They bring over this big cooked pig, and her mom refuses it because they don't accept charity. And so it's A24, so it's a very very thinly veiled metaphor
Right.
because the pig starts rotting over the course of the movie and there's maggots and it's like, but like I wish there was more of that. You know what I mean? I wish there was just a little more grittiness, a little more spookiness to
Well,
this
there was
movie.
the one scene where she, steals like the egg from like its nest and then like fucking pops that open after like thinking about her husband, being like fucking blown up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, no, don't get, there was a little bit of
There's
that,
there's
but
a few
I
scenes here
just
and there that kind
personally I
of
wish there was a little
yeah.
more.
No, I mean I wish there was just a teeny bit more too, but I feel like it had a
Mhm.
good level of, build up horror into it. So I
Mhm.
personally didn't really have much trouble watching this film. I would say the only input that I do agree with is the scene where she's having that whole fucking, dialogue of her talking or that monologue or whatever,
Yeah.
for like 6 minutes straight. I wish it was cut. I wish it was shortened just a little bit because it did drag for too long. Because there was just
Yeah.
some topic she was
Well,
talking about that I just kind of just lost interest. I was like, I'm like, yes.
that's just A24, dude. That's the thing. Like I watched this movie and I enjoyed it, but I can't help but shake the feeling that it might be a little bit better if it wasn't made by A24 because A24 they used to be a little more thought provoking, but I feel like nowadays A24 movies they pick a pretty basic theme, which I feel like for this movie I feel like the theme was mental illness and also
Family drama.
family drama. Exactly, like family not drama, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess trauma, I guess fits a little
I mean,
better.
it rhymes,
But
so.
yeah, if I was a rapper, I'd write that down. Be like,
Well,
"Holy
there you
shit."
go, Eminem.
There, dude, Eminem's next bar right there. No, but no, I feel like A24 they take like a pretty basic theme like that and then they try to build it up to be more than it is. Like I how do I explain this without sounding like like an asshole? I feel like this movie had really good themes and really good ideas with Pearl and the kind of hardships that she has to endure and the dynamics between her and her mom and the family and the time, and I think all of that was really interesting, but not explored as much as it should have been. I feel like A24 likes to be like, "Hey, look at this theme," and then they just don't like to explore it very
True.
far. They like to be like, "Hey, look at Pearl and these issues that she has," and then just trauma dump it all in the last like 5 to
Yeah.
10 minutes. And I don't know, it's just I wish that it was spread out a little bit more and also just a little bit deeper than it was, because
Understanding.
and like I had the same feeling that I did when I watched The Whale, and I know you're gonna hate me for this. I liked The Whale,
Grrr.
but I thought it was overrated. I I know. Well, my issue is that The Whale, its ultimate theme is depression and anxiety. That's kind of the ultimate theme in that movie. But I feel like they just didn't go into it as deep as I wanted them to. I feel like when I came out of The Whale, I was like, "Oh yeah, depression is bad. Thanks A24." Like, and I felt the same way about this movie, where I was like, "Oh yeah, like if I was in that situation, I would also go a little bit crazy." But I didn't really walk away from it thinking about it much
Right.
deeper than that. And maybe that's just me being a guy and having a different perspective. This movie I feel like resonates with women a little bit more. But I don't know, A24, they've just kind of been letting me down a little bit recently. I want them, I like what they're going for. I just wish they would go a little bit harder in what they're
I mean,
doing.
I could see where you're coming from. I personally think A24 has been doing a pretty damn good job. I would prefer like A24 horror films more than other films lately because lots of other horror films that have been coming out have been kind of dragging.
Mm.
You know, they're not as exciting as
I feel like Bloomhouse has done
Bloomhouse
pretty good.
is slowly getting better again, but A24 has been like skyrocketing like a lot the last few years, and I've been really enjoying a lot of the A24 films. And I don't know, I thought Pearl was a good mix of just psychological and a good horror and little family drama in there too. It kind of, like I said, it gave me like a Hereditary vibe because like Hereditary was a lot of psychological horror and then kind of mixed with family drama, you know. And it did have that build as well.
I think you're right in that these are really good movies to compare because they have similar themes. And that kind of ties back into what I was saying, where I wished Pearl had a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more, like Hereditary. And it didn't have to go as hard as Hereditary. It doesn't have to go completely in that direction. But you're right. Hereditary did have a lot of similar themes. It was a lot more of a psychological horror, but it still had a really really strong just classic horror element of just things being
Yeah.
fucking scary. While yes, Pearl classifies as a horror, I wouldn't say there was anything in it that was scary.
It just need a little bit more salt into the mixture.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, I like what they were doing, but it just felt a little watered down for my tastes, if that makes sense.
No, it does make sense.
But no, I mean honestly, I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to watching X and Maxine. I want to know how this story develops, and I think Pearl, the character, is in the other movies, isn't she?
She's in X. I know Pearl as a character is in X. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
She's not in Maxine, and I'm not gonna. Oh
You
yeah, she's
sure?
not. Mia Goth is like the same. Her character, like the main character, because she's playing as Pearl and the main
Mm-hmm.
character in X. She's playing as two characters.
Oh, interesting.
Pearl is the antagonist in X, but she's just older.
Huh. Okay, well now I really need to watch these movies because her being both characters is.
I think X takes place in like the 60s or 70s.
Mm-hmm.
So like Pearl's like older like by
Yeah,
then. So she's an older version of Pearl pretty much.
I
And
see.
then she's also playing as, you know, the main character in the film too. And then Maxine is pretty much Maxine, the main girl in X. She's pretty much like
I see.
that's the next movie is just more about her. So
Okay, well, according to Google's shitty new AI answer thing, Pearl is in Maxine. It doesn't
Is she
say in what
really?
capacity, but it says she's in
Maybe
Maxine.
like a flashback sequence, but I
Maybe.
mean,
But again, that's Google's shit AI generative answer.
I think Pearl died in X, so I
Oh,
mean,
okay.
sorry to
Well,
throw the spoiler,
spoilers.
but I mean, yeah, she might have been in it for like a flashback sequence, or maybe when Maxine's trying to remember
I
from like
see.
the past. But yeah, I
Well,
won't
either
say
way,
anymore.
I'm still super curious to see how these characters continue and develop. Like that's one thing that when I watched this movie, I don't know, maybe it's just knowing that there's other movies, but when I watched this movie, it felt like just a piece of the whole story. And like I said, maybe that's just because I know that there's two other movies that come after it, but it really does. It feels like it's meant to be continued, which I
Yeah.
guess it is. But you know what I mean. I'm just fucking trying to give credit, trying to be positive here.
Overall, I would say Pearl was a good movie. I think
Yeah,
IMDb's score is probably going to be my kind of accurate
yeah.
score. I would give it a 7 for this whole film.
I
I feel like the last couple episodes we've been doing, I've just been playing it safe and being like, oh yeah, 7. Like 7 is
it was
good.
good. I liked it.
And besides Scream's a 10 out of 10. But anyways, Pearl was a good 7. I still really enjoyed this film. I think it's a good one. It's different in a little bit of the way of a new horror, but yeah, no, I thought it had a good mix of horror and drama, and
Yeah.
Mia Goth did fucking phenomenal in this film. So very,
Yeah.
very, very big props to her. Like this was a really good film.
But no, I think ultimately for me, my final thoughts are that I agree. I really liked this movie. Mia Goth in particular, just the performance from all the actors was fucking perfect. Like, I don't think I have any critique for the performance side of this movie. And I really liked everything that they were going for. I just wish there was a little more horror and a little more hammering home on the themes. But that's just a personal thing, you know. That's not
Yeah.
anything that's objectively wrong with this movie. As far as like objective flaws with this movie, I don't think there are any. I didn't really catch anything that felt, off to me. But no, really good movie. I'd say yeah, 7.5 out of 10.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to review X
Yeah,
one of these episodes, but I think it's about time you and I should start inviting a special guest in probably the next episode or so.
yeah,
Ooh,
yeah. Oh,
that'd be fun. Yay. You hear that, audience? We might do a new
and it
something.
could be one of you. If you call into this number, the seventh caller will
1-800.
be 1-800-Terrorvision. That's 1-800-Terrorvision.
Uh,
Again, the seventh caller today will be the final guest star.
call it now and we'll throw in a free t-shirt.
Hurry while supplies last.
For more episodes, follow us or tune in on Spotify and YouTube. And to follow for more updates on our podcast, visit and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Terrorvision with Justin and Alex and Terrorvision Podcast. But yeah, hopefully soon we're going to do X. We'll review X for you guys soon, or pretty soon too, like I mentioned. Might spice things up a bit and have a special guest in our podcast. We already know who that first guest is going to be, but I'm not going to say any more. But
They'll just have to wait and see, man. They'll just have to stay tuned.
yeah, and then make sure you call that 1-800.
Yeah.
Until
Call
next
now and get an extra order.
until next time, I'm Justin.
And I'm Alex, guys.
This is Terrorvision with Justin and Alex. Oh no!
Man.